If you're a business leader and you're not getting the results that you want, it's likely because you are not massing hard enough. In this video, I will define what the military principle of massing is, how it can be helpful in the business world. I'll give a couple of examples, and I will walk through the 3 steps that a business leader could take today to use massing. One key thing about massing is that it is one of the 9 principles of war. So before we define massing, let's talk about those. The 9 principles of war are fundamental truths of how to execute a successful military operation and have been proven over and over throughout military history. And you can see at the top here is massing. So to put it clearly, massing is one of the most important military concepts that has been thought of over the last 150 or so years. So let's define what it is. Massing is the act of concentrating combat power at a specific time and place to achieve decisive results. Great. Let me elaborate on that a little bit more. What that means is massing is focusing your resources on a specific opportunity to give yourself an advantage. In battle, that's usually a spot in the enemy line that you think you can gain an advantage. In business, that's some opportunity that will give you more value than your competitors. Now let's jump in and talk through how a tactical advantage in combat can be gained through massing. All right, this is just a simple tactical scenario, and at the top here you see 6 enemy squads, and this right here is a trench. And at the bottom here we have 6 friendly squads and a section of 60mm mortars. So if you're the military commander here, you're in a pretty fair fight. You have 6 enemy squads and 6 friendly squads. How are you going to gain an advantage? You're going to do it through massing. And let's say in this scenario, we notice that this squad here is slightly separated from the other enemy squads. So we are going to mass our resources on that to gain an advantage. And what that will look like is all 3 of these friendly squads working together to attack that squad simultaneously, and all of our mortars will be shooting and suppressing that single enemy squad. And the purpose is to overwhelm that squad and gain a huge advantage over them. And what we know is if we can gain an advantage on this squad, then we will then be able to gain an advantage on the rest of these squads in the long term. And that is a very simple example of how massing is used in combat. So massing is a fairly simple concept. It is overwhelming one part of the enemy line to gain an advantage. Now, how can a business leader use that in the civilian world? So the 3 ways that I think a business leader can start using massing today is first, identify your biggest opportunity. The best way to figure that out is ask yourself, if I were to deliver the number 1 most amount of value I can, what's the number 1 project? What drives the most value? If I could snap my finger and the thing that I want done by the end of the year could be done today, what would I choose? That usually clarifies that decision, because if you say, oh man, I really wish if this thing was done, everything would be solved, all my problems would be better. That's the thing that you should mass on. The second is, what's the max number of resources needed to do that? And my favorite question is, how could I do this thing in half the time? Asking yourself how you could deliver a project in half the time is more of a mental exercise, but a lot of times you come up with some creative solutions on how you can pull more resources in or solve different problems quicker if you applied massing to it. If we could get, a little bit more funds here, or 1 more person here, or this deprioritized here, then we could probably deliver this by the end of the year. And that will be your pitch. What is the max number of resources that you could use to solve your biggest problem? And the third thing is diverting those resources to it. Use as bare minimum elsewhere as you can. I'll talk about that in another video. It's a whole other principle called economies of force. But what you are not trying to do is get these resources diverted to your massing, which then gets it diverted to your number 1 priority. That is really what massing is and how a business leader can use it today. Let's jump straight into a quick business example. What you see here is 5 blocks of work. 3 of them are opportunities and 2 of them are just steady state work that we need to maintain. At the bottom, we have 4 blocks of resources. Those are some combination of people, money, and equipment. That is the resources that every civilian leader has. If you're a director all the way up to a CEO, you have people, you may have some money, and you may have equipment. It gives you a finite amount of work that you can get done and a finite of resources that you are in charge of. So the number 1 thing that we can do is ask ourselves, what's our biggest opportunity? So let's say our biggest opportunity is opportunity 3. What massing would say is, instead of also doing a little bit on opportunity 1, do a little bit on opportunity 2, and then also maintain steady state, what we're going to do is cut opportunity 2 and opportunity 1 and go all in with everything we can on opportunity 3. That is what massing is, and that's how you gain an advantage. Now, those are hard decisions. They take some courage. They take some backbone. So as a leader, you need some certainty in your decision. But that's what you get paid for, is to make bold decisions. And if you want to have success as a leader, limit as many opportunities as you're chasing as possible and only go after your biggest opportunity. And if you do, then you will gain a huge advantage within that goal. Massing is my favorite of the 9 principles of war. I think it's the most applicable to the civilian world. In my opinion, if a leader does nothing else other than mass their resources, prioritize and keep them focused, and make good decisions about what to mass on, they can be a complete shitbag in everything else. They can be a terrible person. They can do everything wrong. But if they make really good decisions and they keep their resources focused on those good decisions, they will still have really good performance results on delivering value. All right, thanks for watching. You can check out another of my video by clicking on the thumbnail at the end screen on this video. Warren Business 6 out.